Here, let's have a talk about this whole Russia, China, US foreign policy geopolitical thing in a way that makes sense, in a way that uses logic. So we're going to call it philosophy. Let's chat. Hello, Garland Nixon here, and we're going to have a talk. And not a normal talk where we talk about, what's going on or what's the latest, who's, you know how it goes. People want to, go to a channel and some guy tells them where the artillery's fallen and who's advancing on Kherson or, what the G and who blinked and all this kind of stuff. But let's talk about how we talk about this thing, how we discuss this stuff, how we think about this stuff. Let's try to have, this is what I'll call it, an intellectual conversation. And here, let me tell you what something very important. I see Nick, if I can find it, started off by saying, hello, all truth seekers. Truth seekers. Nick, that is a powerful statement, and it is absolutely aligned with what I'm trying to talk about here, because a discussion of philosophy is about how do you find the truth. Of course, when you have a philosophical discussion, you've got to start by saying, what is truth, right? It's a noun. If it really gets down to it, oftentimes when we say what is such and such, it's a noun. It is a word. That's what it is. It is a word that we use. It is a symbol. It is a sound that we use to describe something. So that's all it is. Truth is a word that we use to describe something. Reality is a word. It is a sound that we make to describe something. The issue is not, and this is important, I think, and before we even start with the philosophical conversation about this, it's knowing the difference. To have this discussion, a philosophical discussion about these things, you have to know the difference between the sound, between the word, between the symbol we use to describe something and what we're actually describing, right? We use words to describe reality, things that are real. We use it to describe concepts. Truth is a concept, right? It's a concept. And we use the word truth to describe a concept, right? Unless you're French, unless you're German, unless you're Chinese. You use a different word to describe this same concept that what we talk about as truth. I'm seeking truth. What are you really seeking? Because oftentimes, and this is why I think it's important to have this conversation, oftentimes people aren't seeking any kind of truth as we would like to perceive it. I once read an article, and it was about, that was when I was at Fox, when I was on Fox News all the time. And there was an article, and it was about people who watch Fox News. But I'm sure the truth, in my opinion, is true for all, right? And at the time, Fox was super, super partisan. CNN and MSNBC were not just plain old mouthpieces for the Democratic Party and what have you, as they are now. They were still bad, but they were different. They were different. They've gone completely over the edge now, right? But what they did is a study of people who watch Fox News. And what they found out, it was like Fox News is changing people's minds and turning people. Okay, you can make an argument that anything that we consume affects our understanding of the world, but there was something different in there too. And I think that applies to this, to this podcast, whatever the hell you call it. That there were a lot of people who were watching Fox News who watched it because they believed that they would get things there that substantiated what they already believed. So they didn't go to Fox News to be convinced of something. They went to Fox News because they were convinced of something, and they believed that they could get things that would make them feel better about what they already believed, make them feel better and smarter because somebody was going to tell them what they believed was true. The problem is when you turn on the media, they understand that. When you turn on the news, they understand that. So they're going to give you things to help you to substantiate things that you already believe with a twist, because they're going to also add what they want you to believe. I always say, what if people say, do you watch or read the mainstream news? I say, sure, I do that whenever I need to know what what the government wants me to think. When I want to know what the corporations and the power and the oligarchs want me to think, I just turn on CNN, MSNBC, and Fox, and I know what they want me to think. The national security state, that's where I can get it from, right? But it comes down to, more often than not, and I'm sure there are people here, and I'm probably guilty of it in some ways, and that is, do we seek information because we have a genuine curiosity, or do we seek information from a narcissistic perspective because we believe something and we want things, and we want to find things to substantiate what we already believe so we can feel better about ourselves, so we can feel smart? Now, interesting, Emery Chin put something out, seek truth from facts, and I haven't even got to Russia, China, US yet, but it's all coming, right? Seek truth from facts. There is a problem with that too. There is a flaw there. If we think about that, one of my favorite books is John Ralston Saul, and it's called Voltaire's Bastards. Here's the problem, and that is, again, the word facts. What do you mean? I once read, I was reading a tweet recently, and it said something about, well, if you get your facts from Fox News, then blah, blah, blah. But if you get your facts from here, and my answer was, if they're facts, what difference does it make where they come from? You have bastardized the word facts. If you get your facts from, you can stop right there. If they are facts, it wouldn't matter where they came from, right? Because they would be facts. What they're saying is, if you get your information from Fox News, but it has been bastardized to the point where people don't understand what the word facts mean anymore, how hollow that is. So they now say, I got my facts from this person. Where'd you get your facts from? What difference does it make? You don't need to ask me. We need to just determine whether or not they're facts. And how do you figure out if they're facts? Are they falsifiable, right? So my point being, we get back to, more often than not, confirmation bias. That's it. And more often than not, what people are looking for when they say they're seeking the truth, when they see they're seeking facts, more often than not, they have a system of beliefs, a set of beliefs about certain things, and they want to find people that agree with them, that will say you're right, so they can walk away and feel good about themselves. I do radio, and I always say to the callers when I take callers, hey man, if you agree with me, you get 1 minute. If you disagree, you get 2. Why is that? Because it doesn't do us any good to listen to people who just agree with us all the time. That's the system we're in, and the system is setting that up. The system saying, don't read Press TV, that's Iranian. Don't read RT, that's Russian. Don't read Global Times, that's Chinese. Don't read. The system is telling you what not to read, and what they're saying not to read is things that opposes the narrative that they want you to believe. Right? Which means that is not truth seeking. That is not intellectualism. I consider myself an intellectual. Why do I consider myself an intellectual? Not because I have any greater brain computing power than me. I'm a human being. I'm smart as the next guy, smarter than some, stupider than some. I don't even know what the hell word smart means. You can have some freaking guy who can't read. Does that mean he's not smart? Do we base intelligence on how many books you've read? Do we base intelligence on whether or not you have a degree from a vine-covered university? Do we base intelligence on your ability to pass certain tests that test your mechanical skills? What do we base it on? So I'm no smarter or stupider than anybody else. I like to read. I've read a lot of books, and I can put that information together based on the books that I've read. But the bottom line is, when we talk about geopolitics, when we talk about Russia and China and the US, there's a lot of philosophical issues there that have to be discussed, right? Here's one, and I see this all over. And I've talked about this before, but I'll talk about it now. Here's one. The issue of liberal interventionism, right? One thing I'll say about the Chinese and the Russians, and they do not export their culture, right? They do not attempt to export their culture. They don't say everybody has to be Chinese. China is China. They say we're socialism with Chinese, whatever. Basically, it's our Chinese version of socialism. That's theirs. Russia's like, we are what we are. It's none of your damn business. But they're not going around the world telling everybody you have to be like Russia or you have to be like China. Now let's look at the United States. Nancy Pelosi was talking the other day about democracy and freedom, and Joe Biden. Around the world, there's democracy versus authoritarianism, and we've got to go with the democracies. We got to spread democracy. Think about that. Think about the conceit, the narcissism there. That says my culture, my way of life in my country is superior to all others. Let's start there. According to who? According to you. Hey, Garland Nixon, who's the greatest basketball player ever in the world? I think it's Michael Jordan. Certainly not. Who is it? It's me. Well, according to who? Me. So you hear Americans. America's the greatest country in the world. You're an American. Yeah, that's pretty stupid for you to say that. Michael Jordan didn't have to run around saying, I'm the greatest basketball player in the world. Everybody else told him. So if America's the greatest country in the world, America never once has to proclaim that it's the greatest country in the world. The people of America don't have to say we're the greatest country in the world, because the rest of the world will know that. You don't have to encroach upon other countries with economic coercion and military coercion to convince them that you're the greatest country in the world. You're certainly not the most civilized country in the world if you're coercing other people with violence, right? So does the greatest country in the world, does that mean you have the most powerful military and you can coerce people the best? It seems to me at times that's what people believe. And so we get this. We get people who get convinced that their culture is superior to other cultures. Therefore, it is their moral duty to export that to other cultures. It is also their moral duty to determine what other countries are doing internally and to pass judgment on that and to somehow mitigate things going on in other countries. I hear people that I know. I had somebody, a lefty, I know, a person who follows me, and I put, when I put this up, right, and I put this up on another page, and they're like, that I'm going to be on, and they were like, yeah, well, all three of these countries lock down their people, and I have a problem with that. Time out. Here's the way I look at it. Because people are like, well, look, Navalny in Russia, which they know nothing about the case except what they're told by the mainstream media. Oh, there's something going on in China. Well, the Chinese people, they have, what do you call it, social credits and blah, blah, and they do lockdowns and all. Time out a second. That's a very American thing to say. Here's why. What the hell business is it of Americans what Chinese are doing in China? See, that's the root of liberal interventionism. You have people who consider themselves truth seekers and open-minded and all that kind of stuff, but they, unbeknownst to themselves, have been bitten with the same liberal interventionist bug as Joe Biden, as George W. Bush, and the worst neocons. Because at the root of the liberal interventionist bug is, my culture is superior, according to me, and therefore I have the right, nigh I say, the duty to look at the internal works of other countries and pass judgment on what they're doing. Now, here's what I have to say about the China lockdowns in China. Ain't none of my damn business, right? Here's what I got to say about Chinese social credits. Ain't none of my damn business. If the Chinese don't like the social credit system, they could do something about it or maybe not do something about it. If they like lockdowns, if they hate lockdowns, they can do something about it, maybe not do something about it. If you look at China outside of the liberal interventionalist, arrogant, hubristic bubble that we're handed by this culture that says, particularly this media culture that says we're morally superior to all other countries, you realize something really, really quickly. And that is, the people in China are much happier with their government than the people in the United States. If you think about that from a logical perspective, you have two countries. Congress has like a 7% approval rating. probably lower than monkeypox, right? Lower than a snake's belly in a wagon rut, if they, as they would say in the old South, in the old westerns, right? So I've seen the numbers 86 to 95%. So let's say 90% of the people in China approve of the government. A country with like single digits approval ratings of the government, the people in that country somehow believe that they have the moral and ethical standing to look at a country with a 90% approval rating and somehow pass judgment on what that country's doing with its people. That's absurd to me. And I'm not saying you should like what they're doing. First of all, Norway, Ghana. Let me just name random countries. Mauritania. I don't know, whatever the hell, right? I can make up the name of a country. What right does an American have to say, yeah, you and your country, you're not treating your people right? Because let's do it the other way around. China. They're saying, mind your damn business. Russia, they're saying, mind your damn business. Americans, well, what's going on with Navalny? First of all, this is what I find with most people. I say, tell me about Alexei Navalny. Well, he's being treated bad by the... Whoa. Give me the details. You think he's being treated mistreated? Give me the details. Oh, I think he was arrested for something. And the Russians are holding him and he's in jail. What was he arrested for? What were the charges? I don't know. So you know that he was done wrong. You know he's being mistreated, but you don't even know what the damn charges are. Did you know he was arrested for embezzling him and his brother were arrested and convicted of embezzling hundreds of thousands of dollars from a French cosmetics company, not a Russian company. So your problem is not with Russia; it's with the French cosmetics company that went after him for embezzling him and took his ass to court in Russia. Oh! I didn't know. Oh! So what you have is you have people who are passing judgment on somebody in another country, and they don't even have any information about it. They don't even really know. And they have been convinced by this media culture that they somehow have the right to go around the world to look at random countries, any country, but it's not going to be random because the country is going to be given to you by the government. You didn't choose Alexei Navalny. The CIA came up with him. What are we going to do? Well, here's the plan. We're going to go on TV and we're going to tell everybody Alexei Navalny is a good guy. And it's just a bullshit CIA operation to spread propaganda, to give you the boogeyman, to give you the victim, to give you the whole play. The boogeyman's Putin, the victim's Navalny, the hero's whoever the hell they tell you the hero. It's a play. And then Americans are like, yes, sir, what about that Alexei Navalny? Next country, China. Oh, yeah, this guy's bad. You know, I'll do radio, and I'll be talking. I remember I was doing my radio show in LA, and I was talking about Syria. This happened, that happened. And I had Dan Kovalik on, and he's been to Syria, and he was talking about what he saw, and blah, 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 blah. Some guy called in, and this is a term that they use a lot. I'm like, yes. I don't like what you're saying. Okay, I'm listening. You're trying to, now listen to this term, make it seem like that Assad's a good guy when he's an evil dictator and he's this. Whoa, and I'm like, time out. I don't understand that term. Make it seem like. I gave you facts that I can substantiate. This happened, that happened, this happened, that happened. These are facts. They can be substantiated. But yet you say I'm trying to make it seem like he's a good guy. I don't know him. Could be a good guy, could be a bad guy. It's not my job, since I'm not a Syrian, to determine who's good guys and bad guys. And I don't even know what the hell you mean by a good guy and bad guy. One person's good guys, another person's bad guy. But I can only give you facts on Assad. So the guy's, oh, and I'm like, well, he's a dictator. Yeah. Okay, give me an example. He mistreats his people. But give me an example. He dropped used poisonous gas against his own people. I'm like, how much do you know about that? There is a very, very powerful argument to be made that he didn't. There's been investigations that have I have reviewed that seem to very clearly show that he didn't use poison gas against his people, that's absolutely a preposterous argument. The guy didn't want to believe it. Why didn't he want to believe it? Because he already had a set of beliefs that was given to him. You think about it. You live in California. How would you find out about Assad in Syria? And why is it that your beliefs about Assad, he's a dictator, he's a bad guy, he's this, just coincidentally happen to align with the CIA's official position on Assad? The CIA, the State Department's official position is he used poison gas against his people. He's an evil dictator. He's committed genocide. And isn't it interesting that some schmuck in California just happens to have his beliefs about Assad align perfectly with the information that is put forward, with the narrative that is put forward by the intelligence community? To me, anytime I look at the narrative that's put forward by the government or the intelligence community and my beliefs align with them, I start questioning my beliefs. And I want to look for facts. I want to look for details, but not just facts. Facts ain't all. People get caught up in facts, right? It's like, you've ever heard this, figures lie and liars figure, right? Facts ain't it. Because people can manipulate facts. I was an investigator. I thought about investigation. You have to, along with facts, you have to have other things that work with facts. Let me give you an example. You've got facts, right? But you don't know what's a fact and what isn't. Somebody tells you a fact. Somebody says, here's a fact. Assad's a dictator. How do we know what we know? Okay, I will believe you. Give me the details. How do I know? But what happens is people turn on the TV and somebody says to them, Assad's a dictator. Somebody says to them, John McCain is a good guy. And they say, well, John McCain's a good guy. And they don't even know. You've heard this. Propaganda works when you say things and you believe it. You believe when you say something that somebody else told you and you think you came up with the idea. So you say Assad's a bad person. Well, how do you know? He's just it. Who doesn't know that? You've probably heard people say this before. Everybody knows that. That ain't an argument. People use that. Well, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, how do you know that? Everybody knows. That ain't an argument. Everybody? What does that mean? Every person that ever lived, every human being. If I go to some tribe in the middle of the Amazon forest where they haven't seen people in 1,000 years and I walk up to them, that's part of everybody. They're going to know that Assad's a dictator. It's preposterous. Right? But what else do we need? We need other things. What are, for instance, history? What does history tell us? What does history tell us about the people who are giving us this information and tell us facts? Have they been reliable sources of information? Let's see. Where'd you get it? The New York Times? No. The mainstream media? No. So if I'm getting information from people who have not been reliable sources of information, I remember asking a person recently, they're telling me all this stuff about Ukraine, and I'm like, that's a bunch of horse shit. Oh yeah, I know. I got it off the meat. And I asked him, how do you know that? Well, it's on TV. I see it on all the news. I'm like, well, it's not true. Do you think they'd lie to us? I'm like, have you ever heard of weapons of mass destruction? Did they lie to us about that? How about COVID? Did they lie to us about that? Do I think they'll lie to us? They have. I don't have to think. We've got weapons of mass destruction. We don't have to guess whether a government would lie. That's data that we already have. That is experience. That's personal experience, and that's history. So we've got so-called facts, but we don't always know what are and aren't facts. We know what we're told are facts, but we also have personal history, right? We've got history. We've got experience. We've got a lot of other things that we can do. We've got research. So the idea that we can use facts can be discounted by the reality that when you're told shit that it's a fact, or more often than not, you've got somebody who wants you to believe something, and so they tell you that that is a fact. Okay. Additionally, let's look at, because it gets back to this. what we're experiencing, and I guess this is broad, this is broad, is a two things together: a culture that is inculcated into our very being, into our very DNA, the idea that the United States as a citizen, as a country, is somehow morally superior. And we have the right, and to other countries and other cultures, and we have both the right and the duty to go around the world and tell other countries and other cultures what to do, to export our style of government, to export whatever we believe other countries should have. Well, everybody should have democracy. We don't, I don't, there are people that argue we don't have democracy. So we're taught these things, right? And we're now told where we should get our information from. Now, what I argue is those things are anti-intellectualism. Intellectualism is where, how do I get to the reality? How do I get to the truth? How do I get to find out, figure out what's going on? Anti-intellectualism is not using logical methods to get there, right? So there's an example. One of the things that we're taught now is, where'd you get your information? By the people that want to manipulate us. Because I say, well, blah, 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 blah. Where'd you hear that? What is that most of the time? It is an attempt to discount something. You believe such and such about COVID. And I say, well, do you know, for instance, somebody says, well, if you're vaccinated, vaccinations will keep, you can't possibly get COVID for life. And I say, well, I got some other information that says the vaccine efficacy wanes after a certain amount of time, blah, 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 blah. Where did you get that information from? Well, A, I should be able to source it. But B, I should be able to say, well, here's what I'll do. I'll email you a couple links to a couple of stories, and you could look at it for yourself and decide for yourself. If you don't believe it, I don't give a shit, right? That don't change it from being true because you don't want to believe it. So, but here's the way it works. Oh, I see. That was from Tucker Carlson. Yes. I've even had people, Tucker Carlson, you got a story. Oh, that's from Fox News. That's from RT. That's from this. That's from that. Bottom line is this. Don't matter where it came from. That's intellectualism to say that we should disregard information because of the source. You can use the source as a context. You can say Garland got that from Joe Biden told him, and Joe Biden's a liar, so I don't trust Joe Biden. However, that doesn't mean it ain't true. That doesn't mean it isn't true. It just means he got it from an unreliable source. What does that mean? That means you have to check other sources. You have to do further research. But to discount it, Trump said it. Well, Trump's a liar. This guy said it. In fact, a person could be a pathological liar. A person could be a human being that has never told the truth one time in their world. However, they could tell you something in that one time. It could be the truth. They could say, look out, there's a rattlesnake behind your left leg. Ow, forget you. Ow, ooch, that hurts. I got bit by a rattlesnake. Why? Because you should at least look. You should at least consider this person has never told the truth one time in his life. But logically speaking, at any given time, they could tell the truth. So even though someone has lied their entire life, doesn't mean they can't tell the truth that one time. So even though I give you information from a source that has completely and totally been unreliable, that doesn't mean it's unreliable this one time. You still have to check, logically speaking. One of the games they play, listen to a game. This is one of them. Somebody says X. Oh, well, this is happening in Ukraine, or there's Nazis in Ukraine. That's Russian talking points, Russian whatever. Okay. Okay. So the Russians are saying that. That's Republican talking points. The Republicans are saying that. Does that make it untrue? Just because, see, again, that's anti-intellectualism. Oh, so you agree with Putin. The implication being, if you make a statement and Putin would agree, first of all, are you Putin's spokesperson? Do you know, did Putin say to you, I agree or I don't agree? But the implication being, if I make a statement and Putin would agree, Assad would agree, G would agree, one of the boogeymen that we're given would agree, then I have to abandon that position. Hey, man, it's pouring outside. Yeah, Putin said it's raining. Oh, well, never mind. Here, take my raincoat. I'll walk back right out with no rain. Because Putin said it. And by implication, anything Putin believes, I have to not believe. I can't walk over to the window and look out the window. Well, Putin said it's raining, so it can't be raining. Although I see water falling out of the sky and everybody has their windshield wipers on. But Putin said it, so I can't believe it. Oh, that's Russian talking points. Any kind of talking points. It doesn't matter. Those things are irrelevant. That's anti-intellectualism. That's what they're teaching us right now. Do not, I'm going to give you, and again, it's a control matter. I'm going to tell you the resources that you can utilize to get the information. These are the approved resources, right? You know what you're going to get? If you go to the approved resources, you're going to get the approved narrative and you're going to come to the approved conclusion. You're not going anywhere, especially if somebody else tells you to do it. I'll put it like this. As soon as I heard don't read whatever you do, don't read RT, I'm going to read RT. I want to know what the hell they don't want me to read. No. Hey, whatever you do, don't read the Chinese. It's Global Times. Well, then I got to sure as hell read that. Because remember, every war, every conflict, look, every divorce, go to the divorcees. What happened? Who says it was my fault? It's rare. What do they say? Yeah, she treated me like crap. What about you? He was abusive. They may both be right. Only one of them may be right, but everybody on all sides thinks they're right. You go to a war, the soldiers on both sides thinks God is on their side. You ever read, you ever do any research on the Civil War, where the Southerners were like, God is on our side and we're keeping up the godly way and blah, blah, blah. You ever hear the battle hymn of the Republic? Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Think about it. It's religious. It is both sides saying God is on our side. The troops are getting prayed over on both sides. Hey, God, help this guy to take this bayonet and stick it right in that bastard's gullet right over there, God, because we're doing God's work. Everybody's doing God's work. But everybody can't be doing God's work, can they? Everybody's believes. So it doesn't matter. You believe this. And it's philosophy. Understanding the issues in philosophy is understanding the difference between what you believe and what is real. Understanding that those two things may not align. And it's understanding, first of all, why do you believe what you believe? How do you know what you know? I remember when John McCain died. John McCain died, and I heard so many people that I knew, good friends. Yeah, that John McCain, he was a true, outstanding man. He was a good guy. He's the way Congress. And I'm like, are you kidding me? He was a corrupt, criminal, warmongering piece of shit. There's not a lot of people I hate as bad as I hate John McCain. Why do you say these things about John McCain? Because he's a corrupt, warmongering piece of shit. Well, I don't think so. I'm not saying, you know what? I like to do this to people. One of the things I like to do is feign ignorance. Because if you tell people you're wrong, you don't know what you're talking about, they push back. I don't want people to push back. I want to know. So I say I do it in and we talked Zen, there's firepower, there's water, fire energy or water energy. Fire energy, you're wrong. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. I'm right. That's fire energy. I'm burning you down. Water energy, it's gentle, it's soft, and it consumes you. But any idea what happens when a tidal wave hits? There ain't nothing more powerful than water. I prefer water energy. It is my nature, right? So rather than say, you're wrong, you son of a bitch, you don't know what you're talking about. Here's what Garland Nixon does. Yeah, blah. They say, yeah, Garland, blah, blah, blah. And John McCain was a good guy. And I'm like, well, I know a little bit about John McCain, but you know what? I guess you can help me out. I thought he was a bad guy. That's what I always thought. But you know what? I'm sure, if you say he's a good guy, I'm willing to take your word for it. But help me out. What is it? What has he done? What can you tell me about John McCain's background? Help me out, that so I'll understand a little bit better why I've been wrong. What am I doing? I'm feigning ignorance. What am I doing? I'm not coming at you. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. I'm saying, look, maybe I'm wrong. Right? That's water. It's not fire energy. I'm not punching. Hey, I want to learn from you. And then they go, because you know how this works. He, and they start repeating stuff that they heard on MSNBC, CNN, and Fox. They start repeating, well, he worked with people across the aisle. That don't mean shit. He worked with people across the aisle to what? Most of the time when I see something that's bipartisan, it's garbage. But I mean, you said he's a good guy. That's his job. He's a freaking congressman. He's supposed to work with people on both sides of the aisle. Whatever the hell, he's supposed to work. He's a congressman. So you're a senator. So all you're telling me is he's a senator. And then you find that they don't know anything. And I say, you ever heard of the Keating Five? No, what's the Keating Five? perhaps we should have a little bit further discussion. This is why I say the man's corrupt. And then we talk about the Keating Five scandal and John McCain's part in it. And I say, so how is he such a gentleman and a good guy when he's involved in such a horrible scandal? Do you know his history when it comes to warmongering, when it comes to being pro-war, some of the things that he said? And you remember him singing bomb, 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 bomb Iran. This guy is, going to Ukraine, meeting with Nazis, pictures with Nazis, and saying we're going to go on the offense against Russia and Ukraine 2017. We're going on the offense. This has been on the defense too long, right? When you look at his history, it ain't pretty. It ain't pretty. But the way to it's, again, that's part of philosophy. How do I convince people of things? How do I get my point across? How do I have a discussion? Boom, I don't do this. I do this. Let's get together. Let's talk. You help me out. You can give me some information. And and it's like this. How do I get you to realize something? You can't convince people of things. People have to learn for themselves. Hey, what's that thing over there? I don't know. Well, it has bark, huh? Yeah, it sure does. It looks like it's got leaves. Yes, sir. Roots at the bottom, huh? Yeah. And the guy goes, I think that's a tree. And I'm like, I think you're right. I think that's a tree. Now, if I just say, that's a tree. No, it ain't. It's a motorcycle. You might get an argument. People have to learn for themselves. You point, you ask until somebody learns for themselves. I was a college instructor, and I understand how to teach well, but I understand the importance of letting people think that they learn for themselves, pointing things out, right? So that's what we get. You believe John McCain. Why? Because he's been given to you as a hero by the system. The system wants you to believe that he's a hero. Assad, he's a villain. He's been given to you as a villain. Putin, he's a villain. Gee, he's a villain. Why is that? Because the national security state has eyed these countries as independent countries. Here's the reality. There are countries that want to be independent and sovereign, and they don't want to come under the authority of the United States empire. And so therefore, they have been set in the category of we must convince our citizens to hate them, to dislike them, and to look at them through the lens which we provide. That's what I'm getting at. You are being provided a lens through which to look at other countries. So the first part of this I'll say is make your own lens and understand something, that a culture has been given to you, that you need to unlearn some of the things in your culture, and you can't even see that you're doing them. Whenever you start talking about what the hell somebody should do in another country, check yourself. Whenever you start saying, well, the Chinese, they have this social credit system, and that's not, check yourself right there. The hell business is yours, what the hell they're doing in China. Mind your damn business. Try to fix the United States. If they want a social credit system, they can have it. It ain't your business. Well, in Russia, they do this, or that. Ain't your damn business. Well, they're doing this to Alexei Navalny. Let me ask you this. I had an article that I was sharing when I talked about the Brittany Griner issue. And people were like, yeah, the Russians, Brittany Griner, that's terrible. I said, whoa. As a black man, his last name is Russell. I think it's Arthur. I forgot. I could look up the article. I've talked about it on this channel. In Mississippi, he got life for an ounce and a half of weed. So the United States is going to judge Russia for locking somebody up for weed, which I don't like. I don't like it. I don't think anybody in the world should be in jail for weed, but that's the law in that country. It is the law in that country. And it's the law in part of this country. So we're going to say to her, that's terrible. We're going to say that's terrible for them locking her with weed. But let's be a philosopher here. We have to look at home too and say, shit, most of the states in this country, her ass have been locked up the same. So she's a political prisoner. She's in Mississippi. Her ass would get a whole lot. Why is not the government saying we're going to go to all of we're going to all of the states where marijuana is legal, and we're going to do illegal and prisoner swaps to get the weed people out. We're going to pass legislation in Congress that's going to get the weed people out. They ain't doing that. But yet you're given you've got to be concerned with getting Brittany Griner out, which I am. I'd like to see her get out. But she's rich and famous. The rest of this poor schmuck got life for an ounce and a half of weed. He ain't rich and famous. That's his problem. If he was rich and famous, things may be different. They would be different. First of all, he probably wouldn't be in jail because he'd be able to like live in whatever state he wanted, and he'd be living in a state where it's uh, uh, um, where weed's legal. And he'd be able to afford a very expensive lawyer. So whatever the hell, he'd get out, he'd walk anyway. But again, you're told to judge Russia. You're told to judge China. You're told, well, you know what they're doing in Iran. But what you're not, what now think about this. Saudi Arabia, they chopped 81 frickin' people's heads off in one day. And most of them were Shiites. It was religious oppression, right? Why is it that I don't turn on the news and they're saying, look at how terrible Saudi Arabia is. Look what they're doing. Egypt, the army runs Egypt. They took the elected, democratically elected president. They took the army, took him out of office and put somebody else in. What? How come I don't turn on the news and Fox and MSNBC, CNN, all of them are saying, yes, we've got to act. We got to do something with Egypt. Why? Because they're an ally. And because now think about this. So what we're told is to judge other countries based on what they do and based on their culture and how we compare it to ours, right? But it's inconsistent because we're supposed to judge China on what they do. We're supposed to judge Russia on Alexei Navalny because he's in jail, even though he was convicted of embezzling like $300,000. But we're not supposed to judge Saudi Arabia for chopping 81 people's heads off. We're not supposed to judge Egypt for overthrowing the elected government and putting in a puppet because it's a U.S. puppet, because it's a U.S. puppet state in a lot of ways. So that's the bottom line. You have to look for that inconsistency, but you don't look for that inconsistency from the government. Here's the key. You don't look from that inconsistency from the media. You look for that inconsistency within yourself. You ask yourself, am I being consistent? See, that's one of the reasons a lot of people will hate a Garland Nixon. And I see other people like that. I see Jimmy Dore. I see Glenn Greenwald. I see a lot of people who say, look, I just wanted the information and I don't have an emotional attachment to it. When I look at Trump, I remember when the Trump, all the Russiagate stuff started, and all the people who hated Trump were like, yes, it didn't matter. I remember I had a discussion with a guy one time on the line, and I'm like, it's bullshit. It makes no sense. And he said, yes, but it's a blunt object that we can use to beat Trump with. And I said, well, then don't pretend like it's true. I said, don't pretend like it's true if you already know you don't care if it's true or not. Just be honest about it. I hate Trump, so we're going to accuse him of anything. You have a lot of people. I guarantee you this. And that's why I say don't look at the media for contradictions and inconsistencies. Don't look at the government for contradictions and inconsistencies. Look at your damn self. Are you the one that are saying, I have a right to judge what the Chinese are doing in their country? I have a right to judge what the Russians are doing in their country. You got to look inside for inconsistencies. I will guarantee you that there are people. Trump exposed a lot. In the dynamic of Trump exposed a lot. I will guarantee, and I saw it with my own eyes. There are people like Garland Nixon. I believe in the rule of law, not arbitrary application of the law. Right? This is the rule. This is the law. That's the law for everybody. I will guarantee you, there are people who hate Trump so bad that if you said to them, "Look, how would you feel if they accused Trump of something and we all knew he didn't do it? We knew Trump didn't do it. He was completely innocent, but they accused him of something that he didn't do, that they found him guilty and sent him to jail. How would you feel?" I will guarantee you that there's a whole lot of these blue no matter who people who hate Trump so much that they say, oh, I'll be fine with that. Sure, as long as they get Trump. Why? Now there's an inconsistency there because you're now saying, I don't believe in the rule of law. If you believe in the rule of law, it's not relative to Trump. You see? Now, keep in mind, what you're doing is you're doing what the neocons do. My friends, Saudi Arabia, can chop 81 people's heads off, and I ain't going to say a word. They can do their religious, I ain't going to say a word. Why? They're my friends. My adversaries, China, don't have to do anything wrong, and I'll accuse them of doing something with the Xinjiang, with the Muslims. Why? Because it's not about me looking for consistency. It's not about right and wrong. It's not about justice. It's not about rule of law. It's about smiting my enemies and nothing worse. Well, nothing more, nothing less. If you're a person that says, look, I don't care if Trump did anything right or wrong, I just want him to go to jail, even if they get him for something. Well, he probably did something else. Guess what? The course of history, a lot of black folks went to jail. Where, like, back in the 40s, back in the 50s, and the 1800s, if somebody walked up and said, hey, somebody raped a white woman, they grabbed the first black guy off the street. It didn't matter. We got a black guy. Go lynch him. Close enough. He's not the one that did it. Who cares? As long as we get one of them, hang them. There we go. We got some justice. A white woman was raped by a black man, and we hung the first black man we could find. We got justice. There's no difference. There's no difference. That's a moral and ethical contradiction that says, I don't believe in the rule of law. I'm angry and I want to smite my enemies or a representation of that enemy. There are people who would say the same thing about some of Trump's inner circle. Rudy Giuliani, I don't care, hang him high. What if he didn't do anything? That's okay. Anyway, why? Because he is a symbol, a representation of Trump. So therefore, they want to smite him. Anybody that's a representation of Trump, their mind has been taken to a point where they have no moral and ethical and logical foundation. And so with people like me who said, hey, do you hate Trump? I never met Trump. There's things about Trump I don't like. There's things about people I don't like, but I have never met Trump. He seems like a little weird to me, and it seems like he's got some psychological issues. If I'm honest with myself, I can name them and sit here and say there's some narcissism going on with Donald Trump. There's no question in my mind. But for all I know, look, if we're honest, there's probably some narcissism going on with Garland Nixon. Come on. If I get in front of I like to get on the radio and run my freaking mouth. And I'm confident, very confident. I used to go on TV, national TV. Love it. Podcast, love it. Well, maybe there's some narcissism. Maybe there's some self-centeredness, feeling that I got something that other people, I don't know. I need to keep those things open and say, maybe that's possible. Right? Logically speaking, I want to say I'm a nice guy. Are you kidding me? I'm not a narcissist. I might be the worst narcissist, nutcase, sociopath that ever lived. I don't know, but I got to keep an open mind. But I want consistency, because that's civilization. Part of being a civilized country, which we ain't, is consistency. Everyone has the same expectation of rights. So therefore, look, I've seen this when I've done work with prisoners' rights and stuff like that, right? So somebody is accused of something horrible, rape, murder, you name it, right? And somebody says, well, I think the police should be able to beat them and drag them in. And then when you take them, look, here's what I say. We have laws. I think the police should have to follow the law. I don't care what the violation is. We have a system of rules. And if the police can't beat you, if they're arresting you for stealing a candy bar or embezzlement, if they come in and arrest some guy in a white collar crime of embezzlement, they can't just take the guy and beat the shit out of him. No, that's illegal. They got to take him in. And if you murdered 11 people and they got you, you shouldn't be able to do rape and murder. Why? Because that is a rules-based system. We have a system of laws, and no matter who you are, no matter what your violation, it should be the same. There are so many people that have been exposed to, well, I hate Trump. Therefore, anything we do, anyway, we skirt the rules, no matter what we do to get him. That's a contradiction. That's an inconsistency. And that exposes that person does not believe in the rule of law. They believe in arbitrarily application of the law you use to smite your enemies. That means that they align with the neocons. That's a neocon. That's a fascist way of viewing the world. That's why I say this is a philosophical discussion, right? It's a philosophical discussion because it comes down to consistency. It comes down to contradictions. I heard someone the other day talking about one of these idiots. Well, I was reading an article and they were talking about Russia, right? One of these NATO people. And they were saying if Russia wins, then it just cements the idea that big countries can attack little countries. Well, there's an obvious inconsistency there. NATO attacked Serbia. NATO attacked Libya. The United States attacked Iraq illegally. Which one's bigger? So there's an inconsistency where you're saying, well, Russia's bigger than Ukraine, so they can't attack Ukraine. The United States and NATO are far bigger than Libya, so they can't attack Libya. They're far bigger than Serbia, so they can't attack Serbia. They're far bigger than Iraq, so they can't attack Iraq. Wait a minute. There's an inconsistency there. And it means that you're not a credible actor at that point. At the point where I say I see a consistency and there's a level of entitlement that says for some reason I can do the things that I now argue I oppose after I do them, and then I can condemn someone else for doing things that I did without taking anything else into context. I can say bigger countries can't invade smaller countries. Really? Does that apply to you? No. In fact, while all this was going on, the United States said that they were threatening the Solomon's Island. It may be a red line if Solomon Islands allows China to build a base there. Solomon Islands is over 7,000 miles from the U.S. So the U.S. says we're drawing a red line 7,000 miles away, because that's a threat to us. If China builds a base on a set of islands that's closer to them than it is to us, it's a threat to us. But yet, Ukraine is right next to Russia, and Russia does not have a right to stake the same claim in Ukraine, 1/1000th of a millimeter from their border, than we do to a country, to a set of islands 7,000 miles away. There's an inconsistency and a contradiction. And a person like me sees the inconsistency and contradiction from a logical perspective, not from an ethical perspective, not from right or wrong, good or bad, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, because it has to change to why is it that you're entitled to do these things and condemn another country for doing what you did? Then it has to go to, well, because we're good guys, therefore whatever we do is bad. Well, no, now you got to determine the good guy. You got to now tell me what's good and what's bad and why I should allow you to determine that, right? So I think those are important things to do. It's inconsistency, it's entitlement, and it is knowing the difference between symbols of reality and reality. Let me give you an example. Who is Vladimir Putin? Who is Assad? Who is he? Let's see, that's the name. Putin. Who is he? Who is he? What is it? What is Putin? What is that? It's a noun. That's all it really is. It is a noun. Putin is a noun. Let me give you an example. There's another discussion. A woman, right? Garland Nixon's running for president. What do you think the first thing they do? Yes, sir, I want to be president. Garland, come on CNN. You're a little too far to the left of us. You're anti-war, anti-empire. That ain't going to work. We've got to take you out. So they bring me on CNN. Garland Nixon, what is a woman? Why is that? What is that? It's a setup. It's a phrase. They want you to say something so they can attack you, right? So if they say to Garland Nixon, what is a woman? I say it's a phrase. It's 2 words, a woman. No, that's not what we mean. What is a female? It's a phrase. A female. That's what it is. I know what a woman is. I know what a female is. It is a phrase. It is 2 words that we put together, and we use that to refer to something. Now, what you want me to do is to discuss it's a sound, a woman. Guess what? We could just as easily say, okay, we're going to use this sound. From now on, the word replies to her or who or them or whoever. That's the sound. A woman is the sound. Is a sound. There's a sound. We can use that word, sound. These are nothing but sounds. In the realm of reality, these are sounds. They are symbols. A sound refers to something. So when they say, what is a woman? What are they doing? That is a trap. That is to get you to say the wrong thing so they can attack you. Oh, well, you hate trans people because you said a woman had to be born with female genitalia. Had to have certain X and Y chromosomes before they've been, then that's a woman. You can have that discussion, right? You can have the scientific discussion. What genitalia were they born with? What chromosomes do they have? What legal claims do they make? Have they changed and they were born a male, but they've changed it? But. That ain't what you asked me. You asked me, what is a woman? It's a sound. It's a phrase. It is a sound. And it is a sound that we have come to an agreement. That sound refers to something. Now, what you really want to ask me is, what does that sound refer to? A woman. What does that sound? A woman. We can change it to if it's in Chinese or Russian, it's a different sound. They don't say a woman. They say different words, different sounds referring to that. So all you're trying to do is trip me up by getting to ask me, what do these sounds refer to? And I'll say it depends on who it is. Different people will say that. There are people that you can ask, a woman, who does that refer to? Well, it refers to women who are born with the chromosomes, and it's a scientist, right? The person's a scientist, and they will give you the scientific version regarding chromosomes and how they come together before you're born. That's a woman. Now you can ask another person, and this person is a woke person. Well, it could be a person who declares themselves a female, and they go through the blah, blah, blah. And you ask the next person, and they're religious. They had to be born with a female genitalia and blah, 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 blah. That's them, right? But all the question really is, what are these phrases? And what do these phrases, what do these phrases, what do they reply to? It's no different than saying, who are you? You can never figure it out. It's ineffable. Who's Garland? Hey, who are you? I'm Garland. Garland is a sound that refers to something. Yeah, that's me. I'm Garland. Garland's the sound that refers to you. Who are you? I'm a former police officer and radio talk show host and, former instructor, teacher, blah, 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 blah. You're describing you. Who the hell are you? And no matter how much you have that conversation, you can never get to who you are, because reality is indescribable. You can never use words to get to reality. We use words to refer to reality. We use symbols to refer to reality. But the language is the paucity of language never allows us to get to what we're talking. If I say my name is Garland, I'm telling you who I'm referring to. This is Garland's body. Who the hell is Garland? This Garland refers to something. I can tell you all about Garland, but I can never use words to actually get to who the hell Garland is. And it's that way with everything. Car. Hey, there's a car. Flower. And things are simple. Very, very simple until you use words to describe them. And then they get complicated. Let me give you an example. You walk by and you see a flower, right? In reality, you know what the hell that is. You look at it, you know what it is. Nobody has to tell you what it is. And you don't need words to describe it, right? You don't need words to describe it. You know what it is. A person who's never learned to read and write looks at a flower and they know that damn flower when they see it. Oh, there you go. They know food when they see it. They don't have a word. They can't read and write. They can't whatever. They don't know, okay, right? But they don't need one because they know what it is. Does a male lion wants to mate? He knows a female lion when he sees one. He doesn't have a word for female lion, but doesn't he know what it is? He looks at it. Yes, sirree. That's what I got to mate with right there. He doesn't even know the difference between male and female. There is no male and female in the lion world because they don't have the words for that. They're simply reality, and you don't need words for reality. Reality can't be described using words. Our minds can be manipulated using words. So what do we get? It's interesting. I said, okay, look, let me finish on the flower before I get back to Putin. Now, when I look at a flower, I know what the hell it is. It's simple. You know what it gets very, very complicated? What is that? It's a flower. Well, tell me about it. Well, it uses, it has a stem. And it has roots, and it has petals on it, and you could go on and on and on. And it uses photosynthesis, and it gathers light this way. I could talk about a flower for hours and hours and hours, and still would never get to what the hell a flower actually is. And you walk by, and the second you look at it, you know what it is. And you can't eat it, or you can't eat it. It's a rose petal. I can eat a rose petal. I have lots of vitamin C, but I don't need a word for that. Let me give you another example. There's a man, and he has a PhD. and he in English. And he comes home and he sees his beloved and he says to her, honey, I love you more than, and he recites poetry to her and he reads the classics to her and he writes poetry for her and he tells her, oh, how much he loves her for hours and hours and hours. Okay, does he really loves this woman? That's great. Wonderful. Oh, they're so happy, right? There's another guy. He's on a desert island and he's, with a he's a small tribe. And he sees the woman of his dreams and he falls in love with her and they get together and he loves her more than and he can't read and write. He can't read and write whatsoever. He can't do poetry because he doesn't read and write. And so they don't have poetry. Right. And every day he comes home and when they go out of the tribe, he hunts, he fishes, he does the things they do. He gathers, kind of like they do in Europe now, gathers firewood, things of that nature. Right. Comes back and he presents her with something that he got, a fish, a delicious fish, their favorite fish on this island. And he goes out and he swims around with his spear and he gets one and he brings it home. Boom. And he knows she loves that fish. And oh, she's so happy. And she cooks the fish and they sit down and they smile and they eat the fish together. Let me ask you a question. He doesn't have words. He doesn't have poetry. Does he love her any less than the guy with the PhD in English who recited the greatest poetry for hours and wrote poetry and used all these words? Does this guy love her any less with no words than the person who has words? Absolutely not. So don't get caught up that just because someone's a great orator, that makes them smart. That just because you turn on and they've got a degree and they went to vine-covered university and they know so much that they're somehow smarter than other people. That ain't the case. No. Understand that our brains, that those of us out there, some of them have, the idea that because somebody has a degree from Harvard. Let me ask you this. Supreme Court. Go with Capitol Hill. I remember on Capitol Hill, I did a lot on Capitol Hill. And one thing I found is that I knew a guy, John Conyers. His chief of staff was a friend of mine. She graduated from Howard Law School. People are like, oh, she didn't come from Yale. She didn't come from an Ivy League law school. How dare you, man? How dare you? Why? She couldn't possibly be smart because she didn't come from the right law school. Again, that's illogical. It's illogical. She graduated. She passed the damn bar, same as you, had a better score. But she didn't come from the right university. Why do you believe that? So let's go. Somebody said Putin's a hero earlier. Again, that's what I got to say. Think about this. Who's Putin? It's a sound. It's a noun. It's a word, right? So I'll go guarantee you can say to so many people in this country, hey, tell me about Vladimir Putin. Oh, God, he's horrible, the evil, worst postman in the world. But here's what I like to do. You got to dig, because what you find more often than not is people don't even have a superficial understanding of what the hell they're saying. So tell me about, oh, really? He's terrible. Yeah, tell me, oh, he's a dictator. Really? Was he elected? What percentage? I remember when the war started, somebody asked me, said, you Russians, you're around the Russians, you work with the Russians, all these Russians, you've got a background with Paul Robeson, you know a lot about Russia. Okay. Culturally and everything, right? Yeah. Tell me, now that the war started, what are the Russians saying about Putin? I said, well, they kind of love him. And the guy was like, I could see the wheels turning, right? It was like, shit. I'm turning on the news, and the news is telling me that they're in the streets, they're fighting, they're hate, but that the Russians are all angry at Putin for starting this war. I could see the little hamster running, and he's like, because he knew that I have a history. As again, my mentor was Paul Robeson Jr. Paul Robeson Jr., his father knew a lot about Russia. He went to school in the Soviet Union. I know a little bit about Russia here and there, trust me. And he couldn't reconcile the reality that he had been told about Putin and how the Russians feel about him versus what someone that he knew had experience and knowledge of the subject was telling him. I talk to Russians every day. I walk in, I say, Привет, как дела? And they say, Хорошо, спасибо. Every day, right? And or Hachayana Shuvak, or something like that. Depends on who it is. But the bottom line is, he knew this guy knows. Hey, this guy knows a bit of Russians. But he expected me to substantiate what he already believed. And when I didn't, he didn't want to say, oh, shit, well, tell me about it, Gar, because that's what I'd have done. If it was somebody that knew the subject better than me, I'd say, "Oh shit, tell me about it." What do I need to know? Why am I so? No, that's not what people tend to do. So I consider myself an intellectual because if I'm like, "Hey, I understand the Russians all hate Putin," and somebody says, "Well," and I'm like, figure like you know a lot about the Russians, they hate Putin, don't they? And the guy says, "No, no, actually, no." I've had people. I had a friend of mine, Venezuela. And he's like, "Yeah, I mentioned something about Maduro." He says, "Oh, yeah." He says, "You're in Venezuela. I guess they hate Maduro." I said, "No, the people love him there." I said, "Poor people, especially, they love him. He's a kind of a hero." And he was like, "Huh?" Because it went against what he believed. There was cognitive dissonance. I've been trained that the people of Venezuela hate Maduro. And I'm like, well, the real rich ones, the small, tiny Juan Guaido rich people don't like him, but all the poorer and the working class and all these people, yeah, they kind of, he wins in a blowout every time. His party wins in a blowout every time. That should tell you something. And the guy's like, "Well, you sure they like Putin?" I'm like, "He's got an 1 or 83% approval rating. What do you call that?" And Americans don't look at it and say, "Hey, he's a terrible guy and a dictator." A dictator with 81% approval rating? Figure that out. A dictator that got elected? An elected dictator with an 81% approval rating? Those things don't align. Logically, they don't make sense. I mean, okay, there's been dictators that had false elections, but 81%, and then, but a blowout, and then 81% approval rating, and this is by polls done by the U.S. Polling, not Russian, U.S. polling. Go online and search 81 to 83% approval rating. So apparently, if you get it there, a country with a government that has like an 8% approval rating now believes that they have the moral authority to judge the leader of a country that has a damn 81% approval rating. Those two things are not logical. They don't go together. 90% approval rating in China. So the US, a country that has Joe Biden for president. And we got like Nancy Pelosi and these idiots. What's her name? Kamala Harris running around. Now somehow we have the moral and intellectual authority to judge the Chinese leaders, the Syrian leaders, the Russian leaders with these incompetent, bungling puppets for oligarchs that we have. It is absurd, patently absurd. But you can't figure that out unless you're willing to question yourself. I'm not going to be on much longer, but that's the key, I think, to this whole discussion. And that is, are you willing to question yourself? Are you willing to question the things that you believe? Even those of us who consider, quote, people, "Oh, we're the truth seekers, we're finding out." Just because you are finding out and you are willing to believe things outside of the mainstream narrative doesn't mean that you're a truth seeker. Because in the same way, you could get caught up outside the mainstream narrative to the point where you've got a set of beliefs that are outside the mainstream narrative, but you're not willing to question those either. What makes you any different than the schmuck that thinks John McCain is the second coming of Abraham Lincoln? Right? You're not willing to, so you get caught up in these narratives, true, false, or indifference, but you're not willing to question those. And you're not willing to say, what makes me think? What is it about my belief system that makes me think I have a right to judge the Chinese government, the Chinese system, or how they do things in China or Russia or any other country with the things that we have here? I have had people that I think a lot of say to me, "Well, Garland, in China, they're doing," what the fuck do I give a shit about China? Hey, I love the Chinese people, but I think we got problems of our own. What right do we have to have a discussion about what the hell they're doing in China? Well, they're locking people down. Well, they're Chinese and they're locking Chinese people down. They ain't locking people down in Maryland. I live in Maryland. They're in another country. If the Chinese people want to rise up and push back, that's up to them. I don't think they're going to, because they got a 90% approval rating. So you know what? If the Chinese people are all like, "Hey, we're cool with being locked down," then what else shit do I care? Why do I care? What is it that makes me have to judge what they're doing in China? Well, the Chinese people locked up whoever. They lock people up for this. It ain't none of my damn business. Shame. Too bad about that. Oh, well, let's talk about that brother in Mississippi that got life for weed, for 1.5 ounces of weed. There's people in jail in this country. Charity starts at home and spreads abroad. So I've had people, I've had people talk about the good guys and bad guys. Here's what I got to say. Everybody thinks they're one of the good guys. Everybody thinks. Everybody says there's two teams, the good team and the bad team. Which team are you on? I think you know the answer, don't you? Everybody thinks they're on a good team. Well, that's why, as I said, my mentor was Paul Robeson Jr. And one of the things that I took from Paul Robeson Sr., who I've never met, but through his son, I guess I did. He was never a member of a party. He didn't really want to be a member of a group or anything like that. And I'm like, nah, because I'm out here, I'm not a socialist, I'm not a libertarian, I don't need a label, because as soon as I give someone a label, at that point, they have a reason to apply whatever they want to that label. Well, I'm a libertarian. Okay, well, then we know this about you. Maybe all false. I'm a socialist. Okay, well, we know this about you, all false. People don't even know what the hell socialism is, but they know they don't like it. They don't even understand it. Tell me a bit about socialism. Oh, it's bad, evil, whatever. Communism, libertarianism, capitalism, evil, evil, evil. How much do you know about it? People don't even know, but they know what they like or don't like. They just don't know what the hell they are. My position is, if you ask me, do you like something? Garland, so what do you think about pecan flavored ice cream? Never had it. Never had it. That's the best I can tell you. I have to taste it first. What do you think about this politician and so-and-so? I don't know that much about them. Can you talk about the Republicans? I can talk about the Democrats. I was a Democrat for, God only knows how many years. I can talk about them, but I can't talk about the Republicans as much because I don't know them. I have no expectations what I know about them. And let me add this. One more thing before I go. Understanding the transitory nature of things. When we talk about Russia, China, or the United States, let me give you an example. We talk about Harvard, right? Every 4 years, it has completely different students. Every year, it has a lot of different students. It has different professors. The Harvard today, Harvard 40 years ago, Harvard 50 years ago. Is it the same one? It's transitory. There are people going through Harvard. Harvard is a happening. Harvard is something that's going on. Harvard is an ongoing process. The United States is ongoing. We don't have the same people. People come, they go, they die. It's like a whirlpool. You may have heard a discussion of a whirlpool. You're walking down, there's a little creek, you look over and you see a whirlpool. What is a whirlpool? It's a happening. It's something that's going on. Why? If you walk over and look at that whirlpool, you'll notice something. The water's spinning. Is that the same water that was there yesterday when you walk by that whirlpool? No, it isn't. Will be different. There's not even water the same second. So what we see is a pattern of water spinning, and we make a sound, and the sound is whirlpool. That's the sound we make. If we're in another country, we make a different sound. And we apply that sound to that pattern. That's a whirlpool. What's a whirlpool? A whirlpool is a noun. A whirlpool is a word that we use to apply to that pattern of water spinning, right? Harvard, America, there's a pattern. There's a geopolitical location. There's a pattern. There's certain things, and we call that pattern America. Is America the same America that it was 100 years ago? Everybody's dead. There's not the same people. There's cars that weren't here. There's all these things, but we still call it America. It is a recognizable pattern. Russia is a recognizable pattern. And even people change. Garland Nixon was a Democrat. They protected it. I thought Bill Clinton was a good guy. I loved him. I didn't know. And once I learned, I'm like, holy shit, I was a guest. So many things that I believed that were true are completely false. And what we learn is this. And I think this is important. What we learn is that things that we believe, things that humans have believed over the course of history. You go to any point in history. You go to the 1700s, the 1800s, the 1900s, go to any point in history, and you'll find things that people believe, cultural beliefs, whatever, right? Women shouldn't be able to vote. Black people should be slaves, whatever the case may be, anything, right? And you'll find that the things that people believed at that time are preposterous and absurd and ridiculous and laughable. And you're like, in 1800, at some point, they thought you used leeches to suck blood out of people to make them healthier. You could go on and on, and these things were preposterous. Well, here's what we know. If we can say every point I can go to in history, there were people who believed things that were lots of things that were preposterous, then logically speaking, doesn't that mean it's the same way right now? Logically speaking, can you find a point in history where humans didn't believe things that were some things that were preposterous, at least some things? No, you can't. And many things often that were preposterous. That means that right now, there are many things that we believe that are preposterous. We don't know. We just don't know which of the things that we believe are preposterous. But we know that there are some. But most people don't want to take a bite of that one, because then they couldn't say I'm right about everything. Right now, you think everything you believe is right. You know what I know? I know that some of the shit that I believe is preposterous. I just don't know which of the things they are. So I have to assume that it could be any of them. Right? I have to assume that any of the things that I believe could be absurd, preposterous, and laughable. And 50 years from now, if humans are still there, they'll look back and say, could you believe Garland Nixon believed that shit? What an idiot. And it's true, and I am. But I didn't know. So when it comes to Russia, to China, and the US, you have to maintain that. Have you questioned your culture to say whether or not you have a right to judge Russia, China, or any other country? Have you questioned the things you believe and asked yourself, where did I get this from? And what do I mean when I say Vladimir Putin? Ask 5 different people. Give me the context, the person. Right? What do I mean? You know, in the Black community, the word mofo, everybody knows the word mofo, right? What's the word mofo means? It means exactly what you, as the, what was it? Humpty Dumpty said in Through the Looking Glass, my words mean exactly what I say they mean. Mofo, it could mean anything. Man, she's a bad mofo. She's a fine woman. Man, or, you know, somebody's just mad. He smashes his finger and he says, mofo. That's just an interjection. It's just screaming out, like saying, ah, arg, or ouch, or yay. It's an interjection. Mofo, you smashed your thing. I've done it, right? So the word mofo means exactly what you said. It means it depends on the context of who's saying it. Right. And there's so many words like that, most of them, that they mean, depending on the context, depending on who's saying it. If you ask me what's Vladimir Putin, I'm going to say he's the Russian leader. Well, tell me about him. I can tell you about some things he's done, some positions he's taken, what I think of him. Now ask one of the blue no-hatter, oh, he's evil. But here's the difference, I think. If you ask Garland, I'm going to be able to tell you why I believe that and give you some substantial things, right? Well, I believe that. Well, I think he's a statesman. I think he's a pretty good statesman. I think he's been a reliable economic partner for a lot of countries. He's kept his word. I think I could say some things to me. I don't have negative things to say about Vladimir Putin, to be quite honest. My studies of Vladimir Putin says he's in charge of a country, and the people there, if you look at the trajectory of Russia, the people are living better since he's been there, and it's a more powerful country. It's moving in the right direction. I don't see how I can say he's done a bad job as the Russian president. Why? And if you ask me that, I can substantially explain that. I'm not judging him as a good guy or a bad guy, but I can substantially explain why I feel that way. And it's not based on emotion. I've been told how to think about him. Excuse me, I have, but I don't buy that, or anyone else. So the question, I guess, is this: when you believe something, can you substantiate it? Can you give people some reasoning, at least, as to why you believe that, as opposed to that's what I've been told? And here's the other part you got to ask yourself. What I believe, does it align with everybody else in my culture? Can people just say, well, you know, Garland, you're you're a black male, you're this age, therefore you should probably be a Democrat. I mean, people do that. Well, let's see, you're a black, you're a male, you make this amount of money, you were born in this state, blah, blah, blah. You're probably a Democrat. You're probably this, based on your background. I never want to be that. Well, you know what? You're a white male construction worker. You're 39 years old or 42 years old, and you live in Mississippi. Therefore, you're probably a Republican. I never want to be that guy that somebody simply looks at my demographic and they can use that demographic to basically say, these are the things we can tell you about Garland Nixon based on his demographic. Well, then you're not even a human being to me. You're just an expression of a particular demographic. And your beliefs are not based on anything. They're an outcome of your background and your demographic that's easily predictable. Never want to be that. I want my beliefs and my thoughts, number one, to be challenged at all times by me and hopefully by other people. And I also want to say, you can't look at me and judge me and just say because of this. Now, that doesn't say that I say, well, okay, a black male at my age that makes my amount of money and my amount of education, most of them believe this. Therefore, I'm not going to believe that. I'm automatically going to reject it. So I won't be an expression of that culture, an expression of my demographic. I don't want to do that because then I'm doing the same thing. I'm still not basing my beliefs on what I can substantiate. I'm using superficial things. I'm rejecting. What's the difference between pushing away from things and saying, no, I'm not going to believe what I'm supposed to believe because of my demographic, than saying I will believe what I believe because of my demographic? Because even then, you're not using logic, you're not using history, you're not using intuition. Let's not forget, intuition is one. Let's not overlook intuition. How do you know something don't feel right? Go with that. Something don't feel right. Don't over. What do you think about the Garland? Let's go over here. Whoa, not so fast. Why? Something just doesn't feel right. Something's here. I don't know what it is. That is just as powerful a force, and that should be taken into account. See, in our society, we're intuition is poo-pooed. We're not supposed to ever use intuition. We're not supposed to say that. When somebody says, "Hey, why do you think we should do that? Why are you going to do that?" Just feels like the right thing to do. Oh God, you're one of those booga people, huh? How do we make decisions? We always do that. We should say, well, I took into everything that I could into account and I finally made a decision. But when you get down to it, you could never take everything into account because the amount of things that could possibly happen or affect your decision are like infinitive. You couldn't count them. So what do? You convince yourself that you've taken everything into account. And once you've thoroughly convinced yourself that you've taken everything into account, you make a decision off the cuff. That's what you're going to do anyway. If you're smart, you say, I'm going to sleep on it. What does that mean? I don't know. Let me sleep on it. You get up in the morning. Why? Because you go to sleep and you trust that your brain has the ability to come up with an answer. You wake up refreshed. They say, what are you going to do? I'm going to go with X. Why? I don't know. I slept on it. And overnight, my brain, I trusted it to give me an answer, and it gave me an answer. That's intuition. And in our society, particularly in America, there are societies where intuition is well accepted, but in our society, it's pushed aside, which is interesting. A society that's moving towards anti-intellectualism, a society that says we can't believe Garland. Why? Because he's such and such. We don't listen, don't review what he said. Don't try to research what he said. Don't ask him to substantiate what he said. He's Garland Nixon and I don't like him. He's a Russian bot. He's a Assad puppet. He's a Chinese whatever. He's the demons that we've been given by our national security state, the enemies and villains that we've been given by our national security state, why he's aligned with one of them or all of them, for God's sake. Therefore, we can't believe him, even if he says the sun is shining and it's noon. We can't believe him. See, so we're being given a false way of viewing the world. Well, at any rate, my God, I've been on an hour and 22 minutes. That's a long time. I want to thank everybody for taking time out to listen. I just wanted to have some fun today. I just wanted to run off at the mouth. This is who I am. This is what I like. You know, I like to talk. You're my friends. And I just wanted to chat. All right, let's see. I'm going to do the super chats. Nick M., what would it take for a U.S. citizen to wake up and take back their country? Back? You think they ever had it? Read the Constitution. Look at the people that wrote the Constitution. They were the oligarchs. Did U.S. citizens, see, again, get into this, take back their country? It implies that we once had it. I don't know that we ever did. I know, I don't know. So to citizens to wake up, I don't know the answer to that, but I don't know if they ever had it. Let's keep going. Thanks a lot, Nick M. I'm looking for super chats. And here we go. That's the same thing Schumer impeached Trump for. Exactly. Oh, that was all bullshit. The whole Trump impeachment stuff. But you can't tell the blue no matter who people here because they've been given the greatest demon of all, Donald Trump. Best thing that ever happened to the national security state. A really good demon. Chuck Schumer pushed through the bill funding Ukraine's disinformation center. Then they put his opponent for Senate, Diane Sara, on their hit list. Wow, you went to Consortium News, I think, and you read Scott Ritter's fantastic article on that. Everybody should read it. It's a really good article. Great. Thanks a lot, John McCarthy. A fantastic point. Brilliant guy there. John McCarthy. McCarthy, wait a minute. You're not in the Senate. You're not going after socialists, are you? All jokes aside. Golden Silent, thanks a lot, says, I wanted to correct the record what Hermela stated. EPLF, do you mean TPLF, had no assistance whatsoever from any foreign powers. Jimmy Carter was trying to screw somebody in the peace negotiations. Keep telling the truth. Okay, EPLF had no assistance. Well, I don't know. Whatever. Thanks a lot. Certainly appreciate that. Hermela's awesome. I'm going to get her back. I'm going out of town next week, but when I come back, I got to get Hermela because she's brilliant. She's a very attractive woman. You might not have noticed, but I did. But she's brilliant. She's a pretty woman. She's, and you know what? Now, and guess what? You're not supposed to say that anymore. Garland's sexist. He just said Hermela is beautiful. Yeah, she is a very beautiful woman, and but I mean, that's not why I had her on here. I had her on here because she's brilliant and she's intelligent and she's funny, and those are all characteristics of her, right? And being beautiful is one of the characteristics. What am I supposed to say? So yeah, she was great, and I love having her on, and I'll get her on again. Good info on this site, i.e. Navalny conviction. Thanks a lot. Oh, any more? Do we have anybody? No. Oh, let me look down to see if we got any new super chats, and then we will go to Rockfin. What's this? Okay. I'm looking for any more super chats. Let's go to Rockfin. What do we got? We got a couple of people here who were nice enough to throw a few pennies in the poor old Garland's. Please put a penny in the old man's hat, right? Oh, here we go. Glenn says, cognitive dissonance is the mental disorder of the masses. Everyone needs to take a course in logic, maybe even twice. Thanks a lot. Certainly appreciate that. What else do we have? Somebody else threw a penny in the old man's fishing hat. Oh, here we go. How about this? JVB says, this is right on target again. Thanks, JVB. And chicken patty. Hey, chicken patty. Thanks a lot, chicken patty. You know, chicken patty's, you know, she's a celebrity on this channel. Anything else? Garland, get Elias Amaria, watch the interview the Grey Zone has conducted. Oh, that sounds awesome. That sounds awesome. Elias Amaria. How about this? Creative experience. Michael Hudson says a number of Wall Street economists he used to meet with casually once a month working in corporate government were all Marxists, describes Marx as last class economists. Ivy League schools have been churning out idiots like Ursula von der, stupid, Bozo the pathetic clown, Kamala, Obama, Slick Willie, warmonger, Hillary, blackface Trudeau. Oh, look, if anybody wanted a book, and it's a great book on philosophy called Voltaire's Bastards, and it explains a lot of this stuff, very, very deep. Voltaire's Bastards by John Ralston Saul, because basically he's talking about the elites arguing that they're using reason when in fact that ain't really what they're using, right? And he talks about how we got to this point where we are now. Voltaire's Bastards is great. I became a Marxist after getting a master's degree in mechanical engineering and then stood in a homeless food line after getting laid off. Yeah, that'll do. That kind of stuff will turn you into a socialist. John Ralston Saul, respected Canadian scholar. That's right. Okay, scholar. All right, everyone. Well, thanks a lot. I'm tired. Certainly appreciate all the super chats. Certainly appreciate the people over on Rockfin. Okay, you know what I'm going to say now, don't you? As my dear friend Alex Mercoris says, smash that like button, smash that like button, smash that like button, right? So I want you to smash the like button. Additionally, if you look in the, why? Look at this. Look at why is this necessary? Hey, nude HXZ, best adult dating site. Why does some schmuck always have to come in and do that, right? Yeah. Although, what was that dating site? All jokes aside. No, but seriously, look in the show notes and you will see, what do I have? PayPal. We've got Buy Me a Coffee. We've got Patreon. If you can do $5 a month, 10, 20, 100, whatever you can do is appreciated. Certainly, the thing I love about Rockfin, ROKFIN, Rockfin.com /Garland Nixon. Please make sure that you become a member over there. Well, actually, you can be a member for $9.99 for free. You can become a subscriber for $9.99 a month. Anybody that can do that, that would be of great benefit to me if you could help out to keep the channel going. Make sure that everybody here, I've got 13,800 subscribers. I really need to have 13,800 subscribers on Rockfin too, because if they crap me out, I'm suspended from Twitter right now because I tweeted like these Biden and his group of lunatics are going to get us all killed. And they're like, that's bullying. You're bullying Joe Biden. How dare you? You are suspended for 6 days. So I'm suspended for 6 days. Who's to say that couldn't happen on YouTube, that I can get suspended forever? So I need you to go to Rockfin. Thanks a lot, everybody. Wow, 268 people here, another 50 people on Rockfin. We are rocking and rolling. Thanks a lot. A couple of people, Kinky. See y'all around. Kinky and I are really good friends here. Kinky and I are tight. How about Jet again? Jet says, crackhead Biden in the Jet. Funny comment. And awesome guy and golden silence. Y'all are awesome. Y'all are awesome. Camilla V, Coop W, on and on and on. Peace. Garland, Nixon is about to hit the sack. So oh, thanks a lot. And actually, it's a fishing hat. Yeah, I guess so. It's a bucket hat. But if you notice, it's Adidas hat. And I like this hat. Before I say about my hat, I was at an Adidas outlet store and I looked and I saw this hat. And when I saw this hat, it was like the angels were above me and the heavens opened up and I heard singing. La, and I'm like, oh, how much is that hat? And they're like, well, it's $25, but it's half price. I'll take it. You had me at half price. So, but I like it. It's pretty cool. It's different. It's unique. It's sloppy and floppy. Peace. I am out.